Imagine living through freezing winters, months of darkness, and still being crowned the happiest country in the world 7 years in a row. This is Finland, a land of 1,000 lakes, quiet strength, and a history that sits right next to one of the most powerful and unpredictable neighbors in the world, Russia. How does Finland manage to keep its smile, its peace, and its unique way of life while standing on one of the tensest borders on Earth? Let's dive deep. The World Happiness Report isn't just about smiling faces or sunny weather. In fact, Finland proves you can be the happiest country even when it's minus 20 degrees Celsius and the sun disappears for weeks. It measures factors like trust in government, low corruption, a strong social safety net, personal freedom, and support from the community. And in each of these, Finland ranks near the top. In Finland, politicians' expenses are public information. You can literally look up how much your local mayor spent on coffee last month. This transparency builds trust, and trust builds happiness. If you lose your job, you're not thrown into chaos. The state steps in to make sure you have housing, healthcare, and the chance to retrain for a new career. People feel secure, even in uncertain times. You're never far from a forest, a lake, or the sea. Nature isn't a luxury, it's part of life. Finns have a word, everyman's right Jokami Henoikas, which means anyone can roam freely in the countryside, pick berries, and camp almost anywhere. Here, overtime isn't a badge of honor. Leaving work at 4 p.m. is normal. People value having a life more than living for work. In Finland, parents often leave their babies outside in prams during winter naps, even when it's below freezing. Why? Because it's believed fresh, cold air helps babies sleep better. And because the society is so safe, no one worries about kidnapping or harm. That's the level of trust we're talking about. Trust in each other, trust in institutions, and trust in life itself. Before we dive into Finland's tense geography and its delicate relationship with Russia, if you love exploring how countries thrive against the odds, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and let's explore the world together. Finland, a nation of 5.5 million people, shares one of the most fascinating and fragile borders in the world. A staggering 1,340 kilometers of land connects it directly to Russia. The same Russia that has reshaped European history for centuries. For centuries, Finland wasn't even its own country. It was part of the Kingdom of Sweden, its culture and governance shaped by Nordic traditions. The Swedish era gave Finland Western laws, Lutheran Christianity, and a strong connection to Scandinavia. In 1809, during the Napoleonic Wars, Sweden lost Finland to the Russian Empire. Finland became the Grand Duchy of Finland, an autonomous region under the Tsar. Life wasn't entirely oppressive. Finns could keep their language and some laws, but Russian influence slowly crept in, causing tension. When the Russian Empire collapsed during the Bolshevik Revolution, Finland seized the moment and declared independence on December 6, 1917. But freedom came with a dangerous reality. The giant neighbor wasn't going anywhere. In November 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland, demanding territory as a buffer zone for Leningrad. What followed was one of the most legendary underdog defenses in modern history. Against overwhelming numbers, Finland's small army, dressed in white camouflage, skiing through forests, stalled the Soviet advance for months. Despite their bravery, Finland lost Karelia and other territories, about 11% of its land. Over 400,000 Finns had to leave their homes. After World War II, Finland signed agreements to remain neutral. No joining NATO, no provoking the Soviet Union. This careful diplomacy was nicknamed Finlandization, a policy of keeping independence by avoiding direct confrontation with Moscow. Finland avoided occupation, rebuilt its economy, and maintained democracy, but always lived in the shadow of the Soviet bear. And yet, despite this long and tense history, Finland today is known not for fear or conflict, but for something much rarer: happiness. So how did a nation with such a dangerous neighbor become the happiest in the world, year after year? Let's find out. Finland's relationship with Russia has always been complicated, sometimes warm, sometimes tense. Always careful, for decades, the two neighbors shared more than just a 1,300 kilometers border. They shared trade, culture, and tourism. Russian tourists would flock to Finland for shopping, fresh air, and peace. Finns would cross over for cheaper fuel, goods, and cultural curiosity. There was an unspoken understanding: we're different. But we can get along. Visuals suggestion: slow pans of Helsinki markets with Russian visitors, trains crossing the border, Finnish and Russian flags at checkpoints. But then, 2020 changed everything. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Finland, a country famous for walking the diplomatic tightrope, had to make a historic choice, and it did, fast. For the first time in decades, Finland stepped away from neutrality and stepped into NATO in 2023. It was like a quiet man in the corner suddenly picking up a shield and standing with the warriors. Moscow's reaction: predictable, military buildup along the border, rhetoric of consequences, and a sharp drop in the once busy cross-border movement. But Finland's response: balanced. Yes, they invested in defense, new military drills, stronger border security, more alliances. But they also kept channels of diplomacy open, because here's the Finnish way: prepare for the worst, but don't close the door to the best. If there's one word that explains Finland's ability to smile while standing next to a storm, it's Sisu. Sisu is one of those untranslatable words, a mix of grit, perseverance, courage, and quiet determination. It's not about flashy heroism. It's about enduring, no matter how cold, how dark, or how difficult things get. You see Sisu in the way Finland fought for its independence against impossible odds. You see it in how they adapt 2 months of winter darkness without losing their optimism. And you even see it in the smallest traditions, like taking an ice plunge after a sauna, not because it's comfortable, but because it's good for you. Finland's resilience isn't just about Sisu. It's built into their society, starting with world-class education. Schools here focus less on exams and more on curiosity, creativity, and equality. Teachers are trusted, kids are given freedom, and the result: one of the most skilled, innovative populations in the world. Then there's the connection to nature. With 75% of the country covered in forest and over 180,000 lakes, the outdoors isn't a weekend escape. It's part of everyday life. Hiking, berry picking, fishing, sitting in a lakeside sauna. These aren't luxuries, they're traditions. Perhaps the most remarkable thing is trust. In Finland, people trust their government, they trust their neighbors. They even trust strangers, which is why it's normal to leave a baby stroller outside a cafe in the snow while parents sip coffee inside. And this trust is what holds Finland together, even with one of the world's tensest borders right next door. Because they know, no matter what happens, they face it together. When we talk about Finland being the happiest country in the world, it doesn't mean they live in a fairy tale without problems. They have high taxes, harsh winters, and now, a tense border with a nuclear power. The difference is how they face those problems. In Finland, crisis doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to calm, coordinated action. During COVID, trust in science and leadership meant people adapted quickly without widespread protests or denial. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Finland didn't panic. They discussed, they prepared, and they made the NATO decision together. It's a country that prepares for the worst while still living its best. That means keeping bomb shelters stocked, but also keeping the sauna hot. It means running military drills in the snow and still taking time to ski with friends afterward. In short, Finland has mastered the balance. face danger with clear eyes, but never forget the joy of life. Finland's story is more than snow and smiles. It's a lesson in resilience, proof that happiness can survive even next to uncertainty. What do you think? Could you live in a place with months of darkness and one of the tensest borders on Earth? Let's talk in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey, share it with a friend and subscribe for more untold stories from around the world.